Hi, group four. So this is really awkward. I'm actually at a CPR right now. This is like in the conference center. This is like the only place that I could get solid enough internet to like upload a YouTube video. So I'm gonna be like hella awkward and upload it right now while there's like a conference happening around me. So for Alex, you had some notes for us, or some questions for us today. And I'm gonna talk about them. So the first one was about orders of consciousness in a time in your life when you recognize that there was like not a right or a wrong. Are these good summations of development, like feelings of commitment or feelings of dualism? And are those like a good definition? And dualism are like the using the quote where the student's like, "This is all bull." Finding a quote that I like the best. So I think you had asked us to come up with some questions or to talk about how we could like see this in our own actions or our own experience, and I think that would be really easy for me to do, but I wanted to frame it as something that would be a little bit more relevant to what I do as a hall director. So I'm going to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about this and then kind of take it to the next step and talk about how like a situation with a student might come up and how I could have like a developmental conversation with them. So, okay. So the first one here, I'm trying to pull it up on my iPad. A time in your life when you realized that something was right and not wrong. So the Perry reading was really interesting to this week. I thought, or it was really, it was like just so much happening, you know. So I guess you're talking about the kind of transition. I guess that like not right or wrong. That kind of encompasses here. I've got like the list of all the transitions, but like position one, authorities know everything is right. That's kind of going like all the way through to like that. I mean, I guess that statement, I guess, is just a little bit vague for me, where you realize that something wasn't right or wrong, and that makes me think of position 4A, like the everyone's sort of right. We all have our right. Like my mom always said, like whenever we were arguing, she'd always be like, everyone has a right to their own stupid opinion. That like statement kind of sums that up for me. So I think. An example of this, and I think a lot of students in my hall, maybe it's just like the fact that I live in Reed Hall, which is like the honors hall, but a lot of them will have conversations, and I sort of, more often than not, I hear it like from my office, like they're talking in the lobby and I hear them talking. So I think recently I was kind of overhearing a conversation that was happening at the front desk with a student who was talking about like the kind of person that he would want to marry, I guess, which is like weird for me to think about like 18-year-olds like planning their life like that, but he was talking about like what kind of woman he would be interested in like making a life with, which like fair enough, like even though that conversation was sort of like challenging for me in other ways, but I think it's like a legitimate conversation that he was having. But he was talking about like the role that he would want a woman to play in his life, which I think we have a reading that's like coming up next week or the week after, something that's like the role that a woman plays in a man's life. So I'm excited to learn about that. But this just happened, so it's like fresh in my mind. Or not just happened, but like 2 weeks ago. Anyway, so and he was saying, you know, I'd want my wife to like stay home and like care for our children or whatever. And I kind of like came out because he was sitting at the front desk and I was like, oh hey, you know, like what's going on? Casual, cool, like I do. And we were talking about shoot. Ooh, sorry, computer got a wonky there. Okay, no, so it's fine. And I was like, why do you think that that would be like? So, okay, so where he was, where we were talking was, um, he was like, well, I just think that like my mom stayed home, that seems right, and you know, I just think that that's the role that I want. So this reminds me of like position two, and I don't know if this is like developmentally or age correct, but the way he was thinking about it was describing as position two, which true authorities must be right, the others are frauds, and we got into this deeper, and he was saying, you know, I believe, because I watch like Fox News or whatever, that women should stay home and women should be like the care providers for students. And I was like, oh, well, that's a very interesting way of thinking about that. You know, why I guess why, asking in sort of a veiled way, not like directly, but why do you think that those are like the most legitimate sources of information in your life? Um, and we were talking a little bit more, and talking about like the different roles that women can play. Not that like being a stay-at-home mother is wrong or anything, but it's interesting that that was sort of like the important, what he was describing as being most important in a relationship that he was having. So, and I asked, why do you think that that's most important? And by the time we were kind of done, or while we were talking, he was kind of got to the point of, or talking about more position 3, where he was like, I still think that that's what I would want for a relationship in my life. I still think that that's the right thing to do. However, there are situations where women can have like other roles, so women can do all this other stuff, and I think that's disturbing just for me as a woman. But I think the way that he was thinking about it is. Can be represented well in Perry, so that's what I was thinking about. So challenging him a little bit and getting him to see like the different ways, rather than like there's one way of doing things. Focusing a little bit more on how this can be expanded on. Okay, so then your other question was the favorite quotes. I'm going to skip over sorry, just because in the interest of time. I don't think it's my place to like decide if I think that this is like, I don't think I have enough information to like give an accurate critique of Perry's work. So I'm going to say sure, probably, that these are good descriptions of Bill Alden. Okay, so you wanted us to talk, so he comes up with like the quotes from the interviews. And let me find my favorite one. Sorry, this is taking longer, and you're like awkwardly watching me. I think the point that I'm finding a lot of my students, or a lot of my like first year especially students, is at the point of on 86, the 4A or 4B again, but I like the 4A quote because I feel like that's where I see the most students. I think a lot of students are interested in like they want to be open-minded and they want to be accepting of others. So for the student, like the vignette, in areas where experts agree, everyone has a right to has his own opinion. Yeah, sure. The answers aren't in a lot of things. Then anyone's sure. So I think this is kind of where the point that I'm seeing a lot of my students right now, where they have a lot of like really deep conversations without a lot of like coherent backing, sort of. So a lot of times I'll listen to students who will talk about, like recently we had the conversation of evolution, and one of my RAs was sort of like driving it, which is like an interesting sort of like weird place to be in anyway. But and they were talking about like it was interesting because there were some students who were saying, like these are facts, this is like what we know, and like your opinion. The student who was like very pro evolution was talking to another student who was saying like basically your idea is dumb because it doesn't follow like the scientific method, and you're wrong. And the other student, the procreation student or whatever, procreation, not procreation, procreation student, was saying something to the effect of like, well, this is what I was taught, this is what I know, like this is what my parents told me and everything. So in both students, I think we're seeing like the position 2 thinking, where it's like authorities have told me this, or even position 1, but this is what authorities have told me, and this is like what I know because they've told me that. And then third student, this is actually a front desk worker, so they're a little bit older, came in chiming from the back. The front desk is such a hotbed of activity. And the student was saying, well, kind of pushing them a little bit further, and I was kind of just like overhearing this conversation. Do you think, I guess like everyone kind of pushing for the advocacy of like, do you know, do we have like the facts or whatever? Like, isn't everyone just entitled to their opinion? Does this necessarily have to be like a fact base, or can we just like share the opinion? Is there room for both opinions to exist, coalesce? And that reminds me really a lot of this 86. So I think there, I guess, in terms of like a student development conversation, pushing students who are at like the position 1 or position 2 thinking more towards does the option for multiple opinions exist, like have the opportunity to exist in one space. So, yeah, well, it's been great. Hanging out in the Indianapolis Convention Center has been swell. So I guess I'll see you not on Tuesday, but like 2 weeks from now or something. So, all right, well, have a great rest of your week, everyone. Bye.